What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Behind the Tune. Joining me is DJ, producer, and radio host, former music editor for Purple Sneakers as well, Chilean Medcalf.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
A pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking me.
How have you been?
I've been pretty good, yeah. I've been good. Like, this year's been pretty quiet for me, but just trying to...
The mic's flimsy, so...
It's all right. No, this year's been like a bit quiet for me in terms of like putting things out, but I think I've been doing that a bit more strategically. So, yeah, just been like laying low a bit this year, working really hard on like digging for tunes and writing tunes and just trying to get to that next level as a producer. Yeah.
So you've been a bit more locked in this year?
Definitely, yeah.
Are you playing a lot more gigs?
Been playing a bit less than usual, but I've also like not really been seeking out like too much. So, you know, I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've had this year because like I said, I haven't really put much out in the way of music. But next year I'm just gonna like, hit it pretty hard, I think.
Yeah, how's that going to change next year then?
Next year, a lot more on the release front. Like, I think I strategically took a year off because it's funny, when you first start producing, you like start making all this music and of course it's like not the best because you're not that experienced. And I think I was really in a rush to like put out a lot of things when I first started producing. So I think there's a lot out there, maybe not a lot, but there's like a few tunes that I've put out that are definitely, I would not put them out now. Like, it is like so half-baked, but I like that I can look back on that and be like, okay, I am really proud of what I'm making now and like the steps that I've been taking to like improve as a producer. So yeah, I'm like, I think I've really leveled up in the last year and I still have a long way to go, but I'm really hoping that that will like resonate when people get to hear my music.
Yeah, 100%. Because you have released a few tracks, but yeah, this year, you didn't release anything this year, did you? No,
nothing this year.
But are you like working on stuff throughout the year and stuff like that?
Yeah, so like in terms of what is locked in, so my partner, he produces as Slam. He is starting up a new label next year. So he was running this label called Fine Spun with a few of our other mates, which was like focusing on like UKG. But he hasn't released anything in like 3 years and he's kind of been back to the drawing board as well, like trying to refocus and really kind of figure out what his sound is. So we've both been kind of doing that at the same time and he's going to start up a new label at the start of the year, which is like going to be really professional. You know, he's like working with a guy from the US who's helping him with all the financial and the legal stuff. And then we've also got like an artist and there's also an engineer that we've got in Europe as well that's going to like do mixing, mastering, vinyl pressing, like they do everything. So we've got like 2 releases planned. We're going to do 2 splits. I think.
You're releasing on the label as well?
Yeah, so we're going to both do a track each for the first one, and then I think we're going to do another one where we're both going to do a track each as well.
Okay. And
I've got like a few more like Latin influenced tracks that I've been working on too that I'm trying to like find a Latin label to put those out as well. So that's kind of a work in progress as well.
What's the motivation behind like the Latin side of music?
So I'm half Chilean. So my mum and my mum's family moved out here in 1970, and she met my dad. My dad is Australian, so I'm half Chilean, half Australian. But I didn't really grow up with much of a connection to my culture. Like my mum was one of those migrants I think that came here and like really wanted to assimilate and like. You know, my abuela still speaks Spanish at home with my mum, but like I didn't really get taught much Spanish growing up. So it's really funny like coming into this period of my life where like I feel like I have this lost connection that I've just never really been able to explore. And like I've been spending throughout COVID, I spent a lot of time with my abuela, my grandmother and my mum, and like, you know, we looked through photos together and like I learned a bit of Spanish off them. And like, you know, music has been a real way for me to like also like continue that connection with my culture. Like the language is still such a barrier for me, but it's been just insane to just be able to, you know, like connect with producers from Chile or connect with producers from like Latin America and be able to have those conversations, albeit in like very broken Spanish. But
do you know much Spanish? Like,
a little bit.
Are you like getting there with like your speaking?
Definitely.
Fluency?
I think so. It's something that I definitely need to like put a bit more time and effort into. Like I really want to commit to like going to a class. But for now, you know, like I do the Duolingo, I like speak with my family online, and like one of my good friends is Brazilian and she speaks better Spanish than I do. So we like speak Spanish a little bit together as well. So yeah.
But like Brazilian is she Portuguese?
Yeah, she speaks
Spanish?
Portuguese.
Like Portuguese, and then is Chile just Spanish completely?
Yeah.
Like full Spanish?
So there's 2 kinds of Spanish. There's like Espanol, which they speak in Spain. So that's like European Spanish. But then in South America, where they speak Spanish, they speak Castellano, which is like a different language. Oh, it's like
more traditional.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think Espanol is like more traditional. That's what I think people from Spain would say. But then people in South America would say that like Castellano is like maybe a bit more informal and like it's very different depending on where you go. Like everyone has told me, oh, Chilean Spanish is the hardest to learn because everyone speaks really fast and really colloquial. So it's funny learning like Espanol Spanish because that's kind of really what's available online. That's like the most popular form of Spanish to learn. But then like trying to learn like Chilean Spanish, it's like sometimes I come across words and I can't find a translation for them. Yeah. But yeah, it's a process.
How different is like the Portuguese to Spanish?
Portuguese is so different. I think my experience of learning learning a little bit of Portuguese, it seems a lot more difficult than Spanish to me.
Yeah, because you would think that because they're so well like closely connected in terms of like Spain and Portugal and then Brazil and like the rest of South America.
Definitely.
Have like some sort of similarities. Do they have any similarities?
I think they do in terms of like music. There's a lot of like homogenization. I think that's gone on in South America. Like you've got your reggaeton, your dembow, your ballet funk, like that's kind of found a bit of everywhere. And I know a lot of those sounds, or even like electronic music, there's like Raptor House as well, which started from the mini techers in Brazil. Like there's so much influence going on in like Latin American music that's being felt everywhere in the country, and I'm glad that it's being felt around the world now too, you know. And it's cool to see a lot of these producers like getting their flowers, you know, like one that comes to mind immediately, there's a producer from Mexico called Regal 86. Amazing. He makes like really hectic techno, but it's like kind of influenced a bit more by like American sounds. And he did this boiler room recently, no headphones, mixing with 3 decks, and it's just
really?
Crazy.
In South America or?
He did it, I think it was in Mexico or LA. It was one of the two, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I feel like the electronic music scene is actually really cool in South America because I had Flexi Ferg on here a few weeks back and he loves South America in terms of like going there to play. Yeah. Is that something that you would love to explore in the future? Like
100%.
Playing in South America?
I would love to. Like my partner and I are planning on, I mean, you know, financial barrier is obviously a big thing, but I really would love to spend like 3 or 4 months and just go around South America, you know, go and visit my family in Chile and like some of our friends in other parts of the country or other parts of the continent. Like there's a lot to do and see, and like everyone I know that has come back from there has nothing but good things to say about it.
The crowd there seems like it's very up and about and very like positive.
Definitely.
In terms of like receiving that music as well.
100%. 100%. It's like a real sense of community there, and I think that like a lot of like white communities don't really have that same sense of community that I think people in you know, their cultural groups do. Like dancing, I think, is a really big part of electronic music, and dancing is also a really big part of South American culture. So I think to like merge those two things together, it's like so beautiful. It feels like it's meant to be, you know?
Yeah, I think that community aspect comes down to it a lot. Like, yeah, even if you look at like what like migrants that come from South America to Australia, they still have that sense of community.
Definitely.
About them.
100%. Yeah. Everyone I know, I think that's something that I really missed growing up, you know, like we had Christmas with our family and like we did all that kind of thing together, but it kind of stopped when I was about 12 or 13. So like in that kind of formative period, I didn't really have any connection to my Chilean culture, and like had some other stuff going on in the background with my family as well. So like I didn't really get to like pick any of that up until the last couple of years. So, you know, to be able to like now be writing music and be able to like speak a bit of Spanish in my songs and like use my own voice in that kind of way, it's like empowering to me, you know. I feel like I'm like contributing to my culture, even though I'm like so far removed from it. I still feel like I get to be part of that.
So you're like actually like using your own vocals in your like tracks that you're making right now?
A couple of them. It's like here and there. Like my sister got my partner and I a microphone for Christmas last year, which has been sick. Like I come home and I just hear him like freestyling in our room. It's so good.
Like rapping?
Yeah, like he's actually really good. Like watch his face. I'm sure you'll be hearing him spitting over one of his beats one day.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's actually very important that you've got that connection and you're able to do the thing that you love as well with like music, and then also connect to like your culture.
Definitely.
As you said, like it's very important.
100%. And like, you know, DJing and like producing means so much to me because of that, you know. Like I think a lot of people get into DJing like for fun, but I think I've really found this like deeper meaning in it that has just like resonated with me, and I can't see myself giving that up anytime soon.
So that's like something you're probably going to work towards in the future, just fully immersing yourself in your culture and then translating that to your music?
I would love to. I think I also have to acknowledge that, you know, as someone who is like half white, I'm like very removed from my culture and like a lot of the challenges that people in Chile, particularly the indigenous people there, face. So like I'm observing what's happening there as someone in like a first world country. And not to say that Chile isn't a first world country, but it's just a very different place. So yeah, I think in terms of that, like, I'm going to do my best to include my voice in those conversations. But I also, like, I would really love in the future, I want to start a label, and like I really want to keep using my radio show to like platform a lot of these artists who might not get heard otherwise in Australia, you know?
Yeah, I think that's because they're doing that on Nomad right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because you used to be part of FBI as well. Yeah, so how did you start with radio? Like, what made you want to get into radio?
So I started radio when it was my first year out of high school. So I was like fresh 18, 2014, I think it was. And I'd been contributing to Purple Sneakers, I think for like 2 years at that point. So, you know, I finished school and I was like, I wanted to go to uni, but I also wanted to take a bit of time off to just, you know, chill out and not have to think about studying for a while. So I was like, well, what else can I do to kind of get involved with the music scene here in Sydney? Because I didn't really know anyone that well. Like, all my experience with the scene had been pretty much online up until that point. You know, like, you can't really go to much when you're under 18 in Sydney.
Unless you got a fake ID.
Yeah, exactly. And I grew up in like a pretty safe part of town, so like I couldn't get any of that stuff. And I don't have any siblings that look like me that are older. But, you know, I was really lucky. I applied for like presenter training at FBI, which I know they do once a year. They do like a call out for new people to come and like basically be taught how to speak on radio, how to panel, how to like curate and like all of this kind of stuff. And I was really lucky. I remember sitting in that room and there was like a round table. They did like a group interview. There was about 20 of us. And I remember there was like this one guy, I can't remember, I don't actually know who he is, but he was like, yeah, I just got back from America and I work for like Acclaim or Complex and like, you know, I write and do all this stuff. And I was like, wow.
Like Complex as in
like Complex, the website.
Magazine?
Yeah. So there was like people there who were already like really involved in the scene. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm not going to get a look in for this. You know, I'm not that involved.
Yeah.
But I did. And, you know, I got to start presenter training and I did the all-nighter. And then, I did the all-nighter for a bit, and then I moved on to a show called The Selector, which was like a show funded by I think it was like the BBC or something, where it was just like UK music for an hour, which was pretty cool. I mean, it was like, I kind of just got thrown into that role because it was a show that was free and they needed someone, and I was like, whatever. Yeah. But that was a really good introduction to me for like dance music, because I wasn't really into dance music when I first started getting into music media. That kind of came along the way, but I was doing FBI for about 8 years, and then I started doing Nomad 2 years ago now. So I've been on air for about 10 years. Yeah,
what was the all night long show? Is that what it's called?
It was called the All Nighter. So it's like the graveyard shift, you know, like when you first start, you get put on it's like 1 till 6, I think Monday to Friday, and then it's 3 till 7 on the weekends.
Were you getting paid for that?
No. It's all volunteer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So at FBI, the way it works is like, it's kind of like at Nomad, you know, you pay like a resident fee, where you're giving money to the station because they're both not-for-profit stations. So, you know, it's kind of a funny concept to like pay to present, but I think it also is like you're giving back to that community in a tangible way as well by giving them some money. So
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it doing those all-nighter shows, 1 to 6 in the morning?
It's so funny. I think, like, I had a car crash after one of them once because I was so tired. But it's just like the hours are pretty shit. But in saying that, like, the experience is invaluable. You know, you're speaking to a handful of people between those hours. But like to get to practice like mic breaks and paneling and like really just getting to do that in an environment that's like low pressure, I think is really important when you're first starting out. Yeah,
100%. So you was actually speaking to people, like interviews with people from 1 to 6 in the morning?
Definitely not then. No, it was just more so like hey everyone, thanks for listening. You're tuned into FBI, like that kind of thing. But I started doing interviews when I was doing the Selector. So I think I interviewed a couple of people. One of them that springs to mind, this artist called Son. I don't know if you remember him.
I don't think so.
He's like an electronic pop artist, I think, who was like a bit bigger, maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
But I started doing that, and then after that I was doing, what was I doing after that? I started doing my own show for a bit called Pretty Broad, which I had an hour. It ended up replacing that show, but I had an hour where I could spotlight women and like gender non-conforming people in electronic music.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
So I spent a whole hour doing that. That was fun. I would get people on to like have a chat and sometimes do like a little mix. But that was like really my first taste of like getting to be really involved in like electronic music here in Sydney, which was nice.
Yeah, so you weren't involved, so your first like sort of interaction with electronic music was from your first radio show?
Yeah.
Or did you have any like sort of, did you like have interactions with it beforehand? when you were like 16 or something, or younger than that?
Well, so growing up, I actually had this neighbor who was 3 years older than me. So when I was like 12, she was like 15. Okay. And she had an older sister who used to work for EMI Music, which is like one of the big 4 record labels. Okay. And she always used to get like sample CDs from her, from like Gorillaz, and like copy the presets and all that kind of stuff. So when she was done with them, she would give them to me, and I would burn them on my iTunes and like listen to them like crazy. And I think I kind of unconsciously got into dance music then, like Australian dance music, you know, like back then it was like Modular People was a really big label, and like, all these kinds of artists were starting to come up. And so getting exposed to that at a young age, I kind of started doing Purple Sneakers, and it was like dance and pop, and like indie was the big thing that Purple Sneakers kind of was founded on. So
bands and stuff like that?
Definitely, yeah. And like Purple Sneakers used to be a party back in the day at the Abercrombie too, like before it got reopened. Which I was a bit too young to go to, but I've heard crazy stories, you know, like the toilets getting broken, and like Flume, I think, did his first show there. Like, you know, Purple Sneakers, I think, was a really formative platform for like so many people back in that day. So I kind of felt that electronic music influence from then, and then it was like a couple of years later when I started doing the Purple Sneakers show that Martin, who founded Purple Sneakers, was like, are you interested in learning how to DJ? And I was kind of like, yeah, I am. So I applied for dance class that year at FBI, and I didn't get in, but they were like, they took a bunch of us aside that didn't get in, and they were like, we still want to like give you some lessons on DJing anyway. So luckily Martin at the time was like, yeah, he took me under his wing, really taught me how to DJ, and just like gave me a bunch of bar gigs as well.
Okay, cool.
So I did like the first like 2 years of DJing for me was like 10,000 hours of just bar gigs, you know, like doing that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, they do say like to become like really good at something or become professional, you need to do 10,000 hours.
100%.
So I guess you've got that under your belt.
Well, I mean, there's nothing like getting thrown in the deep end like that. I think when a lot of people start DJing, they think that like you're getting paid to play the music that you want to play, but it's not true when you're doing those kinds of gigs. Like, you're getting paid by the venue to play a certain kind of brief, and your job is to basically keep people there, buying drinks, being happy. So there's a lot that you have to learn, I think, doing those bar gigs about DJing, where you have to compromise quite a bit. So I think that's a really valuable lesson that I learned pretty early on.
Do you think it's important for people that are coming up to experience that, or is that sort of like more of an old school way?
I think a lot of people could interpret that as an old school way, but to be honest, I think like if you want to be a good DJ, I think you need to get comfortable with the idea that not everyone is going to like everything that you're playing, and sometimes you're going to have to adjust. Like the worst feeling in the world is when you have a full dance floor of people, you play a few tunes and everyone just leaves. Like, that is the worst feeling.
You had that happen to you before?
Yeah, a few times.
Like at a bar gig?
Yeah, it's happened at bar gigs, it's happened at other gigs. Like, you know, I think that's just kind of naturally what happens as a DJ, but you can't take it personally. I think you just have to like look at those experiences and really reflect on that. Think about, okay, that didn't go well for me last time. How can I fix that for next time? You know?
No, I think that's a good point you make. That like, I never really thought that people just scatter.
Yeah, and it's hectic. Like I'm a person that has anxiety, so seeing that happen, you get really flustered in the moment. In
real time, yeah.
Yeah, and you're trying to like bring people back and like trying to switch the mood up, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But you know, that's DJing. Like you're gonna have a good gig, you're gonna have a bad gig. That's just the reality of how it is.
Yeah, well, let's focus on the good gigs, because you did play a Boiler Room.
Yeah.
which is, you know, crazy. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I feel like that's a bucket list item for most DJs. That was probably, I had to listen to that, and that's a very, very good set. How are the nerves going into that Boiler Room? Because it was a Lost Sunday, so there was that familiarity with that, but how was it knowing that it has that Boiler Room label on it?
Well, I mean, it was the very first Lost Sunday, so no one had actually ever done a Lost Sundays before that.
Was it? Okay.
So this was like the very first time I'd like played at the Ivy, and it was like, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, as a person who has anxiety, like going through the day, I just remember it's like you're waiting in a line and they're like calling you out and being like, all right, it's your turn now. So I got there really early and like watched everyone, had a good time. And I remember, I think Zach Cassettes for Kids was DJing before me. And all my friends were like messaging me being like, oh, I want to come see you. And I was like, I need to just go and like sit in the bathroom and just like breathe for a little bit. So it was pretty anxious. It was kind of comforting to see that the other artists looked pretty nervous as well. So, you know, I think we all were kind of like hugging each other in solidarity, being like, you got this, you know, like it's...
In the green room.
Yeah, literally. It was, everyone was like white as a ghost, but it was so sick. It was such a good experience.
So that was the first Lost Sundays ever?
Yeah, that was the very first one,
I had no idea. I thought it was more like, Lost Sundays was a thing, and then they just sort of collaborated Boiler Room.
It was crazy. It all came together really last minute. I remember being booked for it about 2.5 weeks before. Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I thought Lost Sundays was already established by that point.
Yeah.
And
so
Boiler Room just went in there and
it was. I mean, they really pulled it together. I was really stoked for them that they managed to like for their very first event get such a big headliner, get Boiler Room on, and they sold it out too. Like that's what a way to kick it off.
Yeah. How was it like when you finished that set? What was it like a bunch of relief as soon as like you finished the set and walked off? What was the feeling then?
It was crazy. To be honest, I remember like a few months before then, I was like kind of ready to pack it in and just be like, maybe I'm done like DJing, you know, as a career kind of thing. And then I got that call, and then it just, when I'd finished it, I was really proud of myself, to be honest, because I worked really hard in the lead up to that. And I just really wanted to like put together a good set and like show people that I'm like a confident DJ, and you know that I'm like really considerate of the crowd that I'm playing for, and like those kinds of things. And like, to be honest, I would really love to get to do another Boiler Room, because I really think that I had to like, from the words of the promoter, I had to like pull it back a bit to do the set. So I would really love the opportunity to get to do it again, but I think I would love to do it in a few years when I've like found my sound, put more music out, and I get to rep some of the people in my community. So
yeah, what do you mean by like, what do the promoters do?
Yeah,
like, just like you going too hard.
Well, I mean, you know, I was playing really hard music at that time, and like the promoter hit me up and he's like, I really want to book you, but this is going to be like a houseier vibe. Do you think that you could deliver that? And like at the time I was like, hell yeah, great opportunity, I'm going to do that. And like I love that set, and I think I worked really hard for it, and it is reflective of like some of the stuff that I play, but I didn't really feel like I got to like put me on that stage, you know what I mean? So I'm like so grateful for the opportunity, and I really love the fact that I got to do that Boiler Room, because it opened so many doors for me. But it was like kind of a hard situation. Again, it was like coming back to like the promoter needed me to do this job, and I had to do that job for them. So that's just kind of what DJing is sometimes.
Yeah. How was life after that Boiler Room? Did you see like a spike in your fan base or bookings, or did it sort of just stay the same?
Definitely. Well, like, I mean, like for the first couple of months, I was like getting people hitting me up and like messaging me. And then I kind of got to a point where I was like, should I think about getting an agent? And I spoke to my friend Nina Las Vegas. I was like doing some work for her at the time, and I remember I like sent her a message and I was like, hey, I want to talk to you about like booking agents, because, you know, I've kind of got to this point where I've like found some attention after this Boiler Room, and like I want to keep that momentum going. And she put me in touch with Steele at Proxy Agency, who was like run by Untitled Group. And they were great. Like literally one conversation, we like had a FaceTime chat, and then I think the next day I signed the contract, and I've been with Proxy for about 2 years now. 2.5 years. Yeah, and that's of it. So you were independent when you did Boiler Room? Yeah. Oh wow. Yep. And how did you sort of know the promoter? Like I knew the promoter. So it's actually funny, at the start of the year, a few months before that, I'd played what was it called? They were doing these gigs, maybe it was called Paradise Club, but they were doing these gigs at like the Civic Underground, where it was more like club oriented.
Finely Tuned, was that?
Finely Tuned, yeah. Which is funny, I actually met my partner at that gig.
Which one?
The Paradise Club one that we played. So it was like me, Slam, Cassettes for Kids, we all played at the Civic Underground, and I think that was how I started that relationship with the promoter, because I think I did a good set that night, and I think he got good feedback from that. So, you know, it was really cool to get that call, and he said to me, he was like, you know, we've been thinking about people who have had like an impact on the scene that, you know, could use this opportunity. Like, do you think that's something that you'd be interested in? And I was like, hell yeah. Yeah. Of course I'd be interested. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like sort of snatch that opportunity as soon as it came up?
Definitely, yeah. But it was a bit crazy too, because I was like, oh my God, I have 2 weeks to put this whole set together that's going to get streamed, and it came together in the end. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have to be a bit like... Did you feel like you have to be a bit more animated on camera because it is a Boiler Room? Like, do you feel like you had to like sort of not put on a front, but act a little bit more, I guess, lively because it was a Boiler Room film? Like, it was filming a Boiler Room.
Definitely, yeah. I think leading up to it, I felt the pressure to be like perform and also like DJ and also perform. But then I think when I was there, I just had so much adrenaline, and like I was like running on anxiety too. So I was just like, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm just gonna pretend I'm like doing this mix at home. And it's funny watching the stream. There's some moments where I'm like in my headphones and like trying to mix. Like, it's so hard to mix in a room like that where there's so many people, there's so many speakers, the subs are like right above you. So I was like trying to mix in my headphones, but like I couldn't really hear much. So yeah, it was a hectic experience. I don't think I'll have a lot of gigs like that in my lifetime, but I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, it would have been a good, massive learning opportunity as well. Like, you would have learned so much.
Definitely. And I mean, like, I think I took a risk with some of the songs that I played too. You know, like I played that Dr. Pressure from Milo and Miami Sound Machine. And like leading up to it, I remember saying to my partner at the time, I was like, I don't know, is that a bit like too cheese to play something like this? And he was like, you know what, fuck it, just have a go. And
it got a great reaction.
That was a relief, I think, too.
Yeah.
I think it's like, could have been perceived as like, oh, a bit cheesy, but you know, I'm glad that I took that risk.
I feel like you have to include those cheesy songs into your set sometimes.
Definitely.
It loosens everyone up. Like,
100%. Yeah.
Everyone's like, you're a bit uptight, and then that song comes on, and everyone like sort of just like, feels a lot better.
100%.
And after that, it's smooth sailing because everyone's already so like up and about.
Definitely. And I think I was doing a lot of bar gigs at the time too, so I was like really playing a lot of pop music and a lot of like, you know, 4 on the floor kind of stuff. So I was kind of like, I want to include a moment like that where I could just see everyone singing along and like having a good time, and that felt really good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you one to usually plan your sets, or are you sort of like off the cuff, like when you get there?
I think I have a good process now. It's taken me like 5 years to finally lock down this process, but I like to in the lead up, like if I'm playing like an hour show, I will get a playlist of like 50 songs. I'll have a mix and I'll work out like the first 3 songs. Like I'll get blends for the first 3 going, and then usually I can like off the cuff kind of like have a go from there. But yeah, these days I really like to, this hot tip for DJs, on Record Box, I like to put all my songs in a playlist, and depending on what my set time is in the night, I will like use the star rating system. So I'll be like, okay, if it's 1 star, I'm going to play it earlier in the set. If it's 5 star, I'm going to play it towards the end of the set. And then I kind of like go through my songs and try and arrange them in a way that like kind of matches that energy a bit. And it's like really subjective, and I think it works for the music that I play, so it might not work for everyone, but I'm a logical thinker, so that's helped me like have, you know, more of a logical flow to my sets.
It makes a lot of sense. So like a 1 star is earlier in the set, and a 5 star is more like a prime time.
Yeah.
Like you're playing at like 12 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a cool process. I didn't know that.
But I think at the same time, like you also need to like be lenient as well. You need to like be prepared to change things, and like I think there have been times where I've prepared the whole set. I think Boiler Room is an exception, but I think there's been times where I planned a whole set and the gig has gone pretty bad because I haven't been flexible in what I've been playing, and I've lost the crowd a bit, or like, yeah. So sometimes you have to kind of compromise your creativity a little bit just to kind of keep the flow of it all going.
Do you think it's like stubbornness, or do you think it's like when you say that you've played a set and you haven't like changed it up? Do you think it's like more stubbornness?
Oh my God, definitely. I mean, that's like, I think it was stubbornness at the time, but now I can look back on it and just see that was inexperience. Yeah. I think at the time I was really like, oh, I want people to recognize me for my sound and what I DJ, and like most people don't really think about that. I don't think they just want to come to a night and like see a good DJ, you know? Yeah,
no, 100%. I actually agree with that. Yeah. As I feel like I don't DJ or produce or anything, but I can see how that mindset sort of happens where like I want to show my sound and prove to people what I can play, but like most of the time most people don't. Just want to see a good DJ.
100%. And you know what? I think since I've started producing, I've been able to like put that mindset into my producing because I can control that, you know. I put out that music, I make that music. That is like, and that is representative of me. Whereas I think when you're DJing, you're like playing other people's music. So it's like a bit less personal in that way. So I think by shifting that mindset to producing, it's allowed me to just enjoy DJing again and just like have fun with it and not really like overthink it too much.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
How's your sound developed though since you started DJing? Because you said that obviously with the Boiler Room set you had to sort of take it back a bit because it's not what you usually play. Yeah. How's that sort of developed since you started?
It's so funny. Hey, I think every DJ would have like a different story, but like I first started playing, like I was going to Side Chains. I don't know if you know that club. So it used to be a club night. I think it was Kid and Caboodle in King's Cross, and then it moved to well, it's now gone, but what was known as Good God Small Club, which was on Liverpool Street. And it was like Side Chains, like shout out to Denzel, shout out to Jess, like they've created this amazing hyperpop community here in Sydney. And I first started out going to those events where they were playing like club music, you know, like Baltimore Club, Jersey Club. They were playing a lot of like a bit of techno, but like a lot of hyperpop and that kind of stuff pre that movement. So going to those events was like really formative for me, and I started listening to a lot of that music. And then when I started to learn to DJ, I was like DJing a lot of that music too, which is funny because like I would try and go to like a bar gig and I'd try and play Jersey Club. Like no one wants to hear that at a club at a bar gig. But since then, you know, I've gone through a lot of phases. I've gone through a hard dance phase, which I'm gladly, I think, a bit out of now.
Why's that?
it's just not me. I was getting booked for a lot of those gigs, and like I love that community. Everyone in that community is so passionate and so supportive, but I just think I don't like being attributed with like fads in a way, because I think that I want to have longevity as an artist, and I think that I'm continually growing as an artist, and my sound, I think for the first time, feels like really developed. You know, I've spent a long time trying to figure out what it is exactly that I like to play, and I think that in this last like couple of months I've really kind of locked it in. I've been digging a lot more, like playing a lot of vinyl at home too, just in my own time. I don't know if I'll ever like play vinyl out, but you know, like collecting a lot of those records has really helped me. I've been getting into a lot of like Chicago hard house at the moment. Okay, so it's a scene that kind of was born out of Chicago house and like ghetto house, but it was created by Latin people, like Latino people in Chicago at the time. So, you know, there's a lot of artists like DJ Tragic, Mark V, Poogie Bear. They basically started this whole scene where like Latino people would go on the weekends and listen to this like 1:30 to 1:40. Like, it's so sick. It's like 4 on the floor, like hard shit. They're like, some of the songs they speak in Spanish as well. So like, I've also been playing like a lot of ghetto house, a lot of ghetto tech, and like just some kind of trying to like slow it down a bit too, playing some more house music and like bringing that kind of into it too. So, but I'm really enjoying just this like really straight like 4/4, a bit of breakbeat, bit of Baltimore club. Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but like Latin energy with like techno. INVT, I think, are like the closest to what I've been enjoying at the moment. INVT. They're like a duo from Miami, but I think one of them is from Venezuela and one of them is from Uruguay. So
so like South American roots.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that you mention all like your like the way you've progressed, because it's so many like genres.
Oh, hard.
Like it's crazy how much there is. Like even just getting into the podcast, I didn't know much before that. Just like what techno was, that's it. EDM techno, that's it.
Yeah.
But you sort of get into it and you figure out the history of everything, and you're like, holy shit, there's just so much. Like Definitely. It just develops from one, and then that goes from there to there, and then it goes like everywhere. Like it's crazy.
It is insane, and like I didn't even know about this. I didn't know that like Latin people actually really had a hand at like there was like a really big section of artists in Chicago that like the LA hard house scene was created because of the Chicago hard house scene. Like there's a lot of context to electronic music that I think has been kind of lost now, because electronic music has become so commercialized and it's like a really big global economy now. But I think it's really important to like go back to, you know, where did dance music come from, and like where have a lot of these sounds come from, and like, you know, as someone who's like coming to understand my Latin roots at the moment, it's been so exciting for me to like go through, you know, the labels like Underground Construction, like their back catalogue, and like seeing all these Latin artists like creating this music. But it's cool. It's really informed a lot of my production too, I think.
100%. It's actually I feel like it's also like I guess improved my music taste, because I only this year realized like the history of like techno in general, and like how it came from like African American culture. Like and
like queer African American people like, too.
It was crazy. I remember I was reading about it and I was like, I remember what's Kasimba?
Kasimba?
Yeah, Kasimba. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. But I was messaging her, and she like put me on to this Kevin Saunderson Red Bull interview. Yeah. And that like completely changed my whole perspective on like house music, and I feel like you gain a bit bigger appreciation for it as well.
100%. And it's crazy to think that like these sounds were created in the last like 30, 40 years. Like these sounds are still quite new. So I think, it's crazy to see how much electronic music has just exploded in the last like 40 years. Yeah. But I think it's really important to go back to those roots and like really understand where a lot of these sounds came from, because I think that there's so many different sounds now. Like people get really pedantic about like labeling and stuff too, but I think like you should just enjoy the music for what that is. And like if you really find that you're liking something, like look into it, you know, research it a little bit. That's my favorite part of digging. Like
I find that very interesting. I'm like, where did this come from? Like Inner City, for example, I didn't know who they were, but two of their songs, Big Fun and Good Life, though that like I don't know produce what's that like sound that they use in it. I think it's like a synth or something, but that's used so much. I've heard that sampled so many times. I've heard it in like club gigs. Yep. And I'm like, that's not the same song, but it's been sampled from that, and like been inspired through that. I think it's crazy. Yeah.
Dance music is so much about context too. I think like you're making music for a purpose. You're making music for a club, and you're making music for this space. And it's just it's so interesting to see how like so many different sounds can be recontextualized. Like sampling is so important. It's such an important part of electronic music. Like I use a lot of sampling. My partner uses a lot of sampling. It's great. I really think that it's just so cool that you could repurpose an old sound and like update it in a way, you know.
Yeah, because with that, like, what was I going to say? The inner city stuff. Oh no, sorry. I was going to say like techno, for example. Like nowadays, you hear the word techno and all you hear is like 150 BPM.
Oh yeah.
Like boom, 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 boom. Like just
like industrial kind
like
of stuff.
crazy stuff. But techno, like if you look back to what it actually was in Chicago, it's actually a lot slower.
Definitely,
it's characterized. I'm not exactly sure what it's characterized by, but it's definitely not what it is today. Like the word techno is not the same definition. Doesn't have the same definition as it did 50 years ago when it first was like established.
100%. I think you would go to a club in Detroit and hear the techno they play there, and then go to a club in like London, and I think you would hear two completely different kinds of techno. So it's crazy how all these umbrella terms are just like kind of, I don't know. I guess people don't really know like the specific terms and like the history of those things. So it is interesting to be like, this is techno, but this is also techno.
Yeah, and you get those like comments on TikTok and stuff like, this isn't techno.
Yeah.
Or like, this isn't like hard techno. It's like everything is like, there's a grey area.
100%.
What it's called.
I think you just need to come back to like, does it bang?
Yeah.
You know,
if it goes hard, it goes hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So would you call yourself a techno artist then, or like a techno producer?
I think that I'm a person who is like always been very restless. I'm like not. I DJ house music, I DJ techno, I play Baltimore, I play Jersey Club, I play Latin music. Like, I think I've always been one to play a lot of different music. Like, if you come and see me play for 2 hours, I'll play all of that. You know, like, I'm not one to just like, I'm not the style of DJ who's trying to like get the perfect blend or like, you know, make it all really seamless. Like, I want you to be like, I have no idea what I'm going to hear next, you know, and that's fun for me as a DJ too, you know, being like, how can I mix this this house track into this like Latin track, you know, and it's cool. It's a fun game. I think it's like all a bit of a puzzle, trying to fit it all all together.
So what are your opinions then on like 1 hour sets? Because I know there's a bit of controversy within the scene, and I saw a video, like it's a very old video of is it Sean Garnier, where he talks about like playing 6 hours, like he says like 6 hours is like a good time because you can go on a journey.
Yeah.
What's like your opinion on it? Because I never really understood that whole concept because I don't DJ, but as someone who, as you said, likes to just mix everything and go crazy with the genres that you play, how do you sort of manage to put that into an hour set?
An hour is so funny. I think it's again about like context. Like, are you playing in a club or are you playing like at a festival? I think if you're playing at a festival and you're playing 1 hour, like you're getting booked to play you, like do your thing. Like don't worry about I'm the warm-up DJ, or maybe to some extent, but like I think if you're playing in a club, like the set time is really important. So I think that like if I'm playing 1 hour at the headline slot, like I'm just gonna fit as much as I can in, you know, I'm gonna try and play 40 songs in an hour, 30 songs in an hour. I'm not against that hour set. I think that like 2 hours is optimal because I think you really get to like go in and like get into that flow state. But I think 1 hour can be good. I think if you're someone who plays techno and you play like 7-8 minutes of every track, you're gonna hate doing an hour. But for someone like me, I'll play like a minute or two of a track, or probably like 2 minutes of a track, and then I'll move on. So I think that works better for someone like me. But maybe if you're a DJ who relies on longer blends, that probably won't be good for you.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're forced to sort of quickly go through songs, or is that something that just comes naturally to you?
I think the anxiety thing. I think at the start I'm a bit like, I need to be touching things, I need to be doing things. But once I settle, I'm a bit like, okay, let's think about this a bit more. And So like, so you know, because I was going to say like you need to get into that flow state. Yeah. And I feel like an hour, you really only get into the flow state by the end of the set. 100%. I feel like I only really get into that in like half an hour in. When I check the time, I'm like, all right, shit, second half, let's go. And then you just kind of send it from there. But it is hard. I think people don't understand that like coming into a club, there's a lot to take in, you know, like you might not have experienced this crowd before, you might not have met the promoters before, you might not have played in this kind of setup before. Like sometimes you might walk in and like your USB is corrupt or something. Like this shit kind of happens, and I think that it's about being like flexible again. Yeah.
What's been one of your favorite venues that you played at?
That is a very good question. Oh, sound.
You played in a bit. You played in a bit of venues.
I've played in a few. Yeah. Honestly, I think energy-wise, XE54 in Melbourne is I think like my number one favorite, but sound-wise, Club 77 I think in Sydney. Yeah.
What makes XE54 so good? Because I've heard very good things and I've seen very good videos, but I've never actually experienced it.
Just like the crowd is very different down there. I think people down in Melbourne, like they have the stamina to stay out past like 2 a.m. Whereas I think in Sydney, because we went through a period of lockouts and we went through the period of COVID, like there's a whole generation of new younger people coming into the scene that I think are just like learning and they're building up their stamina, you know, they're trying to like stay out for longer. And like I think I don't know what it is in Melbourne, people just go out later and they stay out later. So I think the energy is in the club, and like I think that's a really popular club too, you know. It's run by Untitled Group, so they get like a lot of big DJs down there. But yeah, I've played there twice now, and every single time I've played there, the crowd has just been like, they stay there, they don't leave. It's pretty cool.
Because it moved, I'm pretty sure. I was listening to a podcast with the Untitled, two of the guys that were Untitled. It moved, didn't it? Recently?
I think so. I think, I'm not sure if it moved again since I've played there, but I remember before the first time I played there, which would have been about a year and a half ago now, they had just moved.
Okay, maybe that was when they moved then.
Yeah.
And what about Club 77? What makes that club so good? Because I've, again, heard good things, seen good things, but I've never actually experienced it.
Look, I love Club 77. I think the actual club itself, like, it's undergone so many different transformations over the years. Like, the Club 77 I went to as an 18-year-old is completely different to the Club 77 that exists now. And thank God for it. Like, if anyone remembers the old one, it was like half of the venue was taken up by this like massive bar, but the vibes were always good, you know. And I think that that's something that they've translated into this new space. And I'm like so glad that they've really been staunch about their, like, you know, their policies in regards to like creating a safe space. I think that's something that's really admirable and something that I think a lot of other venues in Sydney should be like taking on board. But also in saying that, I really think that, to be honest, I was a bit disappointed when I saw that Club 77 were like adding residents to residents to their venue. I think that, like, you know, I've loved playing there. I've played there a few times. My partner and I DJ'd back to back before Interplanetary Criminal at the start of the year, which was sick. Like, I think we did a great job. You know, we planned that set. We worked really hard for it, and I think that, like, yeah, it'd be good to see a lot more like diversity in the people that get booked there. But the sound, it's one of my favorite venues to DJ because it's so well tuned, it's air conditioned, it's like they've really thought about the space where the DJ is so that you actually have a lot of room to just like dance and like be free and like, you don't feel really squashed in the corner, which I really like.
But it might be a bit controversial, but like, why is the resident, like them having residents there, like upsetting? Like,
to be honest, I think that we just don't have enough clubs in Sydney that play music like Club 77 for them to get. I think it's low-key like a bit of gatekeeping, to be honest. I think that like there's a lot of like wealth inequality in Sydney as well, and I think that it's just interesting to see like a lot of the kinds of people that are getting booked there regularly, because I think that like it's great to see diverse faces and like diverse names getting booked on these bills, but I think that like we also really need to think about like wealth inequality too when it comes to like thinking about the diversity of the people that you're booking. And I think that it's a real shame because Club 77 I think could have really included everyone in the community and like really, I just think that it was a bit of a missed opportunity. I think if we had more clubs like 77 in Sydney, the residence thing would be like viable and like worth it, I think, because, you know, there's multiple places that people can go to experience this. But I think that when there's only really like one space, it just seems a bit like old guardish to me, you know what I mean? Like a bit of an old head mentality.
Yeah, okay. Because you talk about X54 and they have residents there as well.
That's true,
but
that's
again,
true.
It's like
but I think it's different down there because
culture,
there's like so many clubs with so many big sound systems, whereas I think we only really have like one or two in Sydney that are big and have good sound systems where,
I think I've never been Club 77, never been to Abercrombie, but I've heard that's a great venue.
Yeah.
Oxford Art Factory is a great venue as well.
Definitely.
But again, it's only those. I mean, you probably speak more than me, but are there any other venues that you sort of think that have the potential to be like a big venue, or is it mainly just those three that I've mentioned?
I really think like, I don't know if you saw the other day, there was like a report that was commissioned by I think there's like a new nightlife committee in Sydney, and they commissioned this report basically talking about like what can we do to like improve the nightlife situation. And I remember seeing a statistic, I think it was something like in Sydney 13% of venues are nightclubs. So like
13.
that 13%. So that is like a really, really small hand. I could be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure it was 13, but like that is such a small percentage of places where DJs can go and play. But also at the same time, because there's such a small percentage of these venues around, like there's a bit of a monopoly. So I think coming back to that wealth inequality thing, if you're someone who like does not have wealth and you cannot guarantee that you're going to earn all your money back from your party, that's a risk. And I think at the moment, like, we're really seeing this problem where, like, well, I think this is a problem where we're seeing, like, you know, there's about 10 promoters who get to put on all these shows, and, like, that's amazing. But, like, what about all the other people who come from, you know, the lower classes who don't have the money to put on those parties? How can they break into these spaces? And I think it comes down to, like, participation as well, you know, like, if you're someone who comes from the working class and you don't have accumulative wealth, like, you're going to be someone who you're going to struggle to afford to go to these parties. You're going to struggle to afford to buy music, buy equipment. Like, it's just, yeah, I think it's like a bit of an uneven footing at the moment in Sydney on that front.
Yeah, I think that's like, yeah, definitely part of it. I think it's like an overarching issue with everything. That's,
I mean, yeah, you look at Sydney as just the wealth inequality is rife, full stop. Like, it's not even just exclusive to music. So, but of course, I think when you consider the broader context of what is happening economically in Sydney at the moment, like, of course, that's going to bleed into other areas like our creative scenes. Yeah, 100%. There's no, like, motivation or encouragement to actually go and pursue those things. Definitely.
Like, it's very much like they're pushing everyone into, like, you know, corporate lifestyles, which, you know, I am part of that lifestyle, but
but you're also doing this kind of thing, you know, like you have an outlet to explore this creativity and this interest of yours, and, like, that is amazing. Like, thank you for doing that.
No, that's okay. Thank you, obviously, you coming on, and obviously if any past guests are listening, thank you for coming on as well. It's been a crazy journey since I've started this, and I've been able to speak to a lot of cool individuals. Learned a lot, actually. Like, I never knew how, like, even speaking about, like, as I was saying before, I spoke to Kasimba, and, like, just knowing the history and stuff, I was like, wow, that's so crazy. Like, all that stuff, and learning about, like, you know, I've spoken to people that are a bit older and, like, were experienced Sydney, like, back in the early 2000s, people that experienced Sydney, like, the late 2010s, people that are experiencing it now, and, like, the different opinions and perspectives everyone has. It's like, very... It's
funny, hey, it's changed a lot.
Definitely. I can't really speak on it, but I had Lestrange on a while back, and he spoke about, like, the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. It's crazy. Seeing, like, there's some YouTube channels. I think there's one called, like, Sydney Rave History or something, where like they just post videos from all these, you know, BYO raves back in Sydney in the day, and, like, holy shit, the culture has changed so much since then.
I think it's just development and everything that's happened in Sydney. It's very much become touristy, which is good. That's good, but I think it's distracted everyone from the nightlife part of it. They're focusing too much on tourists rather than the locals.
100%, and I think, like, even in the scene, like, I really think the people at the top are really focusing on bringing the internationals out, and I really feel like the local scene is kind of feeling that impact at the moment. People only have so much money to spend right now because of what's going on. So I think that, you know, if someone like Fred Again is coming out, of course they're going to go and spend their money on someone like Fred Again. They're not going to go to the local party at the warehouse on the weekend, you know. So I think that, like, I understand why these bigger promoters are, like, turning their attention towards where the money is, but I think at the same time, like, we still need to invest in our local communities and, like, still continue to, like, have these spaces, and, like, I think it's so important to keep doing that on, like, a smaller scale. So, you know, counterculture has always existed too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point you make. I feel like I'm guilty of doing that as well, where, like, you only go out for the name, you don't go out just to support the party.
Yeah.
Where, like, who's playing? I don't know them, so I'm not going to go out.
Exactly. But I understand people's way of thinking too, because, like, you only have so much money to spend, and, like, of course you're going to be like, oh, this cool DJ is coming and I want to see them. But I think that, like, Boiler Room over the weekend is a really good example of, like, they don't care what they, I mean, okay, not that they don't care, but, like, I think that they really had an opportunity to, like, put some of the local people on the international stage. Like, the House of Mints one, for example, there was 2 of my friends opened up the party. They didn't get streamed, but from what I heard, they killed it. They did a great job. So I think that it's funny that, like, all of these international communities are, like, trying to kind of insert themselves here and, like, find a bit of that slice of the economic pie here, but maybe they're, like, keen to overlook what's going on here in favor of that. So I think it's all about balance, really.
100%. Yeah, it comes down to that. Like, I feel like you need to... It's good to sort of have those international acts, but then, like, have supporting acts be part of, like, a local lineup, so you can get those people into the club.
100%.
And then, you know, they're there for the big name, but then they also get to see these artists they might have never, you know, seen before.
100%. And I also think, like, my big criticism of Sydney at the moment is there's, like, a real thing of like cronyism, I think, at the moment, where like mates are booking their mates, and that's cool. Of course you're going to do that, but like we're just seeing the same 5 or 6 DJs getting booked for everything in Sydney at the moment. And like, as someone who has kind of existed on the fringes of the scene for quite a while, it's kind of annoying.
I know what you mean.
You know, like,
you see that and you're like, oh, it's this event, and there's no like FOMO aspect to it as well, because it's like, oh, I'm probably just going to see them next week. 100%. Or I'll see them in a few weeks because I'll probably be on that lineup again.
Exactly. And like, I think curation is about more than just like putting your money into a party. I really think that curation has to do with like, okay, you've got a headliner. Where are these people from? What kind of music do they play? How am I going to book these support acts to complement this DJ, instead of just being like, cool, big act, couple of mates, that's the show. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe that's just I'm putting too much emphasis on curation, but like, that's how I would run an event anyway.
I think that's important though. I think as you said, there has to be that balance, but I think there needs to be that, you sort of need to think about it. Like, it can't just be like a, you know, as you said, big name and then just chuck over on. You have to really think about it. And I feel like that adds to the experience that the punters are going to experience at the event.
100%. And like, that's the best thing, you know, coming home from an event and being like, that was sick from start to finish, you know. Like, I think I've to be honest, I'm guilty of like not really going out lately. You know, mental health stuff's got in the way of that, but like, it's just funny kind of observing what's happening at the moment. But you know, I've not been going to too many events, so of course I can only criticize to an extent, because like, I'm not showing up. But it's kind of hard. I don't know, it's a catch-22. I don't see myself in a lot of these parties, and it's also like,
but you've been in the music scene for a while. As you said, you did Purple Sneakers since you were 16, and that was just covering. What was that? Mainly just rap music and indie music back then? Yeah,
it was like mostly indie and like we started moving into like pop, hip hop, and it was like indie electronica. So really like, that whole Modular People vibe, like Flume, Tame Impala, like, you know, all these other bands, Pond, like it was kind of that sort of thing. And interesting. It's funny, the progression of the dance music that I've been into is just continuing.
In what way?
It's just evolving. I think like what I'm listening to now is completely different to what I was listening to a year ago. And I find myself at a point in my life where I feel out of touch with like what's new for the first time, because I've been like kind of looking back at what's old at the moment.
It's always good to look back at the old stuff though, because there's a lot of gems there.
100%. And I've just been learning more about producing and like DJing that way. So that's been more like fruitful to me, you know. Yeah,
because I didn't actually know what Purple Sneakers was until I started this whole thing. But it's a cool, what would you call it, like a magazine publication? Yeah. It's gone through like so many iterations, you know. Like it was we've had, I think there's been like 7 editors, I think, over the whole period of its conception, and now it's owned by a different company, so you know they've been taken in a different direction. But it's cool to see. I mean, I really think that like I have a media degree, I've studied journalism at uni, and I really wanted to get into music media for a while, but like I kind of learned the realities of all of that pretty quickly, I think. And it's hard, like loving like music media is a really tough, passionate gig, you know. I think that you need to like be passionate to like have longevity in that. Because like a lot of the time you know, there were so many times I would spend a whole day writing like a 5,000 word article about a label and it would get like 8 views, you know. And it's like you do so much out of passion, but then it's such a weird balance. But how was it being an editor though, like a music journalist? Like how is that career path?
It was like at the time it was my dream job. I think the financial aspect of that was like a real struggle for me, because I was like, I had no experience. I was like 24. I'd got thrown into this position where I was like essentially given this business to run that had like never made a profit. So, you know, and I have no business skills myself. Like, so at the time I was kind of getting used to being a sole trader DJing, but then like I was being pressured to like have to make money to keep this business afloat. And it was just like a really hectic time. But I think in terms of like getting to curate what was going on, that was the best part for me, you know, like getting to speak to these artists and like hearing their stories. And like we did a few photo series as well with a photographer called James Simpson. He's an awesome photographer. So, you know, to get to do things like that, I think was like really insightful, and to get to see the artists like sharing this content and having this stuff to be able to share to their audiences was like really valuable, I think.
So like you were like chief editor?
It was so I was like a sub editor for a while, where you just like kind of spend a whole day and you just write articles for the editor. But then I became the editor, and I had like a team of people who were like writing And yeah, it was pretty sick. It was a lot. There's a lot to it. Like, you're not just managing people, but you're also like managing your relationships with publicists and like artists themselves as well. Like, at the end of the day, we were covering a lot of independent artists, so a lot of the time I'd be speaking to the artist directly because they didn't have representation. So yeah, it's cool. I think like I was learning a lot about the process, and like some of those artists were learning a lot about like how the music media process works. But it's funny, like it's changed so much since then, the media landscape. Like Instagram has just really transformed, I think, all of that. There's like, yeah, print media, I think, is like maybe not dead, but I think in the form that it used to be consumed in, I think is kind of dead.
So you were writing like blog articles,
yeah,
in a sense, online. Was Instagram as prevalent as it is now?
Not really.
Was it used as much back then?
I think it was starting to pick up. So the editor after me, Parry, who runs a podcast called Parry Talks. I think he works for Triple J now. Shout out to Parry. He did a great job. But he really like took the Instagram thing and like ran with it, which is something that I didn't do, because I think that at the time it was like Facebook was the bigger thing. So, you know, you'd spend a lot of your like advertising and like a lot of your time just trying to post at the right time on Facebook and like do all this stuff. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't have to do all the Instagram stuff, because it's like it's a lot of labor, I think, to maintain that these days. Like you would know that.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
Even like I had a bit of a news stint. If anyone is watching remembers that little stint I had a few months ago, where I would like post like little news things, but then I realized I was like, that's just so difficult. Like you got to be on top of it every single day, every single minute. And I was like, I work full time. I don't have time for that.
100%.
Plus you stop enjoying it as well. Like I felt like I was just not enjoying it. Like I was like waiting for lineups to get announced or waiting for artists to get announced, and it'd be like a chore. Like, oh, someone's getting announced now. I got to write something up.
Yeah. 100%. I went through that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was just like, it wasn't enjoyable. Now, like, you know, festival lineups come out. I'm like, I'm excited for the lineup to come out because it's for me.
That's so
sick. I'm not sharing it to everyone. Like, and I feel like I went a bit off brand as well from what I wanted this.
But you know what? Yeah. You need to, I think as like a creator and as someone who like consumes music, I think you need to go through those things to like work out what format works best for you.
100%. Yeah. You have to like, it's trial and error.
100%. Yeah. And it's like that. I love that about creating. It's so much about trial and error. Like producing is entirely trial and error, I think, until you get like a bit more informed about things. But it's crazy. Yeah. I think creativity, you really have to just make a lot of mistakes to be able to figure it out, you know?
100%. I feel like with analytics as well, like likes and stuff is so easy to get caught up in things.
Oh my God.
And like give things up so quickly without like seeing it actually turn over, like, and have longevity.
Definitely.
Like so many times, like, you post something and it gets no likes and you give up on it. Yeah. And then like you never know. It's like, oh, maybe if I just kept at it for 2 or 3 more weeks, maybe I would have got like some sort of, you know, social media return.
It's so hard. It's like, and it's hard because I think the algorithm is always changing, and like, they don't really publish any like rules. You kind of have to guess what's kind of going on based on patterns and like seeing what other people are posting, and like, it's all a bit too much of a game, I think. I don't like that about it. I've like taken the business thing off my profile because I was getting a bit too obsessed with like the analytics, and I don't have notifications on for Instagram. So it's like,
neither do I.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy thing to do. Like it's so easy to get caught up in it, and like, you know, before long your screen time's blown out to like 7 hours.
Yeah. That makes sense actually. Like, yeah, my screen time is awful, but I feel like for you, like for DJs at least from my perspective, I've sort of got to be, I'm on it every single day.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, sort of like, or DJs again, it's just sort of posting when you need to.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I'm doing now. I'm like, I only really post anything if I like need to post something, you know. The platform is like really kind of triggering to my anxiety in a lot of ways, especially at the moment. It's really hard with like, there's so much going on in the world. And I think that it's like really hard to maintain a healthy relationship with social media when there's a lot going on, and it's hard to not internalize a lot of it. So I think it's important as someone who like relies on social media for my job, like, and for my music. Yeah, you need to be able to create healthy boundaries with those things to be able to maintain a relationship with it.
Yeah, because like, by the time you know it, you're like on an endless scroll.
And how many times have you done that?
Too many times. Yeah. And like, you catch yourself doing it, and you're like, what am I actually doing? Like, I'm basically seeing it like, because everyone that I follow are basically just producers and DJs, and I'm just seeing basically the same thing. It's just people playing at gigs, and like, you know, they're all great in their own like respective ways, but it's the same thing really. Like, it's just people playing at gigs.
100%.
I catch myself doing that. I'm like, I'm just looking at the same thing.
It's hard, and I think as on the opposite end of it, it's like sometimes hard to not feel like you're not screaming into the void, you know, when you're posting something. And I hate that Instagram does that thing where if you post a photo that's not engaging enough, no one sees it. But if you post like a hot photo, they're like, yes, everyone's going to see this. Like, I don't like that part about it.
It's based on engagement now rather than like it used to be just whatever the most recent post was.
Yep.
So it's like 3 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, an hour ago, and then you just see it all chronologically.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like you see posts like 2 days ago and then 1 hour ago, and you're like, just based on engagement, like whatever, like keep people on the platform, which I guess is their job to keep people on the platform, but it's very toxic now.
It's like low-key so evil, I think. Yeah, everyone is like quite brainwashed. But I mean, like there's no alternative at the moment, you know. Everyone used to do their events on Facebook. I noticed Instagram has events now. Like everyone's migrated to this platform, and like there's not really an alternative, so you're kind of forced to participate in it in a way. But you know, there's pros and cons to it, like everything.
100%. Yeah, but unfortunately, as you said, you've got to use it to grow. Otherwise, you can't do anything really.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's not like old. I don't even know how artists and DJs used to do it back in the day.
No,
be very old school.
I think it was just rocking up to gigs, like making records, giving people your records, and like vice versa. Like, yeah, the times have changed a lot.
I feel like that's much better though. It's more interactive. Like you're actually face to face. You're interacting with people. Whereas now it's like messages, likes, and
definitely
stuff like that. You know, I can't really complain because I'm part of the problem.
But I mean, there's no other way, you know? Like, I don't think it's being part of the problem. I think it's like you're just doing what is necessary.
Yeah, 100%. You know? Yeah, I wish there was an alternative, but yeah, the game's the game at the end of the day.
100%. And like, it's so hard to not get caught up in it. But I think just reminding yourself, coming back to that thing of like, why do I do what I do? That always grounds me, you know? Like, do I do this for Instagram or do I do this for myself? And I do this for myself. So yeah, I feel like I'm in the midst of finding out that. Yeah. Like, am I doing this for the likes or am I doing it for myself? Which is difficult. It's hard as a creative because most of the time, the financial return at the end of the day, as bad as it is, it's like always about how much money you can make out of it. 100%. You need the money to live. So it's like, if you're not making any money from it, your motivation just goes down. Like the financial burden, the choice that you make, and you said like Ableton is so expensive that like, you have to make that choice. Do I buy Ableton? But then you have to like fully commit to it. 100%. And you don't have that, like you can't go back on it because once you've committed $1,000 into it, that's it. Like you have to go into it, and you sort of like it's a bit of like a toxic mindset because then you have like a toxic relationship with, for example, with you with Ableton or like producers with like their DAWs and stuff. Whereas for me, like the camera, the microphones, the studio, like it's like a toxic relationship. Like, oh, I spent this, but I'm not getting anything out of it. 100%, and I think that can be something that really like jades you really quickly as well. But I think that. Yeah, you got to come back to it and think about what do I get out of this by investing in this, you know? And I think that like if to some people they want money out of it, but like I think I'm not really interested in, I'd love to earn money from what I do, but like that's not why I do it. So I think in that aspect, it's kind of like really just being careful and like, you know, like you would have done with your microphones, you know, you would have researched and like informed yourself on what is the best thing for you to get for this kind of setup. 100%. And I think it's the same thing. It's just like you really consider where you're putting your wealth when you're trying to come up and like participate in this scene and like make music and like, I buy all my music too. That's like another thing. Like off of Bandcamp and stuff? Yep. But I will always, if I can't buy it, then I will soul seek it. But most of the time, if I can't buy it, I will just be like, well, I can't buy that. That's fine. Oh, in order to like play the music? Yeah. Oh, wow, like okay. I will only play music that I bought. I think that's just like an ethical thing that I do in my head because that makes me feel good about it. And like, actually awesome, because you're supporting the artist. 100%. And like, I really would hate to see how much money I have spent on music over the last 6 years, to be honest. Think how much money you've given. Well, but it's like, it's also like, you know, I think Bandcamp is a good platform where a lot of artists can get the most income out of. They get like the highest percentage from the revenue that is earned when people buy their tracks. So, you know, I think that's a good platform to invest in. But yeah, it's so funny. Hey, I think that there's, I think the scene would be very different if there was like not as much income inequality. And I don't think it gets talked about enough by everyone. You know, we talk about diversity, we talk about cultural diversity, we talk about like sexual identity, gender identity, but like it's really hard to quantify class. You can't just look at someone and be like, they grew up poor. You can't really look at someone and be like, oh, they grew up, I think, well, maybe you can look at someone and be like, they grew up wealthy, but like... But you never know because, you know, they always say like you could be decked out in designer, but you probably have the least money. Like... It always, exactly, and I think it's like maybe, you know, that person maybe wanted to spend their money on that makes them happy, but like, I think it's really hard to quantify inequality in that way, and I don't know, I don't really have the answer to that, but I would just really love to see that conversation being included in more spaces. Yeah, no, I think that's actually really good. I think it's really respectable as well. I didn't actually know that you bought all your music.
Yeah, that's actually very awesome. Like, I think, as I said, it's very hard though because a lot of people like don't make a lot of money. So I feel like in the back of their head they want to support it, but it's difficult.
100%. And you know, I understand why people soul seek and why people, you know, like, well, they use soul seek, or why they like my free video to MP3, whatever. I understand why people do that, like when they're first starting out and stuff. But I really think if you have the means, like, you buy the music. I think if you can. You know, like what happens one day if Spotify goes down and you're like, oh, I don't have anything to listen to but my MP3s. It's like, cool, now you've bought this music and you can listen to that offline and stuff as well. But I think, I don't know, it's funny. It's just one of those things that I started doing when I started DJing, and I've just always done that. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think Spotify's a good one to bring up because I think they're actually like they're paying less money from next year for their artists. Yeah, I noticed that. I didn't really look too much into it, but I probably should have read the article. But I noticed that they were saying something like for inactive accounts or something, or like people who don't get over a certain amount of plays. I think that's what it was. It's not going to hurt like your big, you know, The Weeknd's, Travis Scott's, you know, those big Taylor Swift artists, but it's going to hurt, you know, people like you and people that are coming up and don't have those tens of millions of monthly listeners. Definitely. Definitely. And I think Spotify is such a like, they hold so much cultural capital in that, like, people use their playlists and like people really go to Spotify to like find new music. So I think that, it's kind of funny, isn't it, that like this platform that has like never made a profit and they just laid off 7% of their workforce. Like, it's just so funny that it can still, I don't know how this still exists. It just feels like a model that is not sustainable. So I don't really know where it's going to go from here. Yeah, I think it's good to bring that up from like an artist point of view, because I feel like as a listener it's so easy to be like, oh, whatever, it's just music, there's like I can just listen to my stuff and that's that. But as a producer, you probably feel the real effects of such a platform like Spotify. Definitely. It's interesting. And I think even just like seeing what kind of music gets playlisted every week and stuff as well, I think if you're not like represented, it's harder to be seen. So I think that Spotify I think could do more to like cast the net a bit wider in that sense, like include more local releases in their dance playlists like Portal and stuff. And I went for a job at Spotify a few years ago to become it was like the electronic music's editor in Australia, and I ended up getting to the last round, but I didn't get the job. But it was just kind of insightful to see they wanted someone who could they wanted me to like create all these playlists and like pitch all this new stuff. And I think at the time they were really seeing that there was a hole in their platform for electronic music and they wanted to fill that somehow. So it's good to see that they're like doing a little bit more for the community, but I think that there's more that could be done, definitely. Yeah, because that Portal playlist, you said do you think there's enough representation or not enough representation? I think there's not enough local representation. I think it's supposed to be like the local playlist, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you look at it and it's like the first like 20 songs are mostly artists from the UK or like your mic's full, sorry. Little floppy mic. Yeah, I think if you go and look at a lot of what's being playlisted at the moment, like the majority of it is kind of people from overseas in the scene. But I don't know, I think we have such a good scene here in Australia, and it's so obvious because people like Boiler Room are coming and investing a lot of time and money into our country and the scene that's here. I think it would make sense for Spotify to also follow suit and like be like, hey, there's actually like an economy here and there's like a community here that want more of this. So but I don't know, I guess that's what happens when you like mix capitalism with creativity. 100%. It's like a weird dystopia. And just like a weird disconnect. I don't know, sometimes you see things that like Spotify do and you're kind of like, why would you do that? But I don't really think I've seen anything that they've done besides like not paying their artists enough. Just that and like laying off all their workforce and like it's just they occupy a weird space in music at the moment, I think. Yeah, it's sort of like a monopoly nearly. Oh, definitely. Yeah, like you've got SoundCloud, which is a good platform because you can just sort of, there's no like copyright on SoundCloud, or at least not as strong as something like Spotify. Definitely. But apparently YouTube Music isn't that bad, like in terms of payouts. That's awesome. I've heard that they've actually, I feel like YouTube does pay well just in general. Like they pay their creators well. Yeah. I mean, they used to pay a lot better, but now with like demonetization and stuff, they're a bit more strict. Yep. But in terms of like YouTube Music, I was speaking to a couple of artists and they said that it actually pays a lot better. That's good. Like it pays like way better than Spotify. That's good. I've heard Apple Music is similar too. Like really? Maybe not as good as YouTube Music, but Apple Music pays better than Spotify. Yeah. But Spotify has that reach. Like, you know, if you go on Spotify, you're going to get the listeners, whereas YouTube is a bit difficult. 100%. Yeah. I think, and like people, I think if you're not like paying for the YouTube model, I think most people tend to avoid it because like you're bombarded with 20-30 seconds of ads before you can even watch something, unless you're paying for the free subscription model. But like it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I use YouTube a lot now because I've been listening to a lot of old music, and like that's where people just upload a lot of their rips from their records and stuff, which is cool. But yeah, the platform is kind of frustrating to use.
Like as a user?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're trying to you're like, I'm on Discogs and I want to listen to this EP, but I have to watch an ad before I listen to every song, instead of like Spotify or Apple Music where you can just be like, play. That
is actually very annoying. Yeah, now that you mention it. If you're like, especially if you're looking for stuff, you have to like watch an ad, and now they've just been so like stingy with the ads. They like play 30-second ads that like don't skip, or 2 15-second ads back to back that like you can't skip.
Honestly, and like Charlie XCX, I hope she's getting her bag for all those KFC ads. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, I definitely think there should be some sort of like royalty from that.
Definitely.
There's no way KFC will be using that unless there's a lawsuit.
Yeah,
that we don't know about.
Yeah, literally. Well, I swear that's like every second ad on YouTube now.
Yeah, I hate it. Even when you think it's not the ad, it just somehow comes up. With like, I'm like, there's someone say KFC, like, oh, what the fuck? Like, how this sneak into it? Yeah.
Yeah, they had to get it in there.
But yeah, I feel like ads are also very like they're very tailored towards like what you're watching.
100%. Yeah, it's true. Actually, if you're watching like something musical, sometimes you get something musical. If you're watching like, I don't know, sport, maybe you get something sport related.
Yeah, like for example, for this, because I look up a lot of like sounds and stuff to add to like my TikToks and stuff, and I get a lot of like creative softwares. Yeah. Like I've heard of like Artlist.
Yep.
Artlist, nice. Motion Array, they're all those like, and I just keep getting spammed with it. I'm like, I'm never buying this. Like, you guys are expensive, and I can get all the shit for free on YouTube. So like, I don't need yous, but like, I just get spammed with that. I think it's like, it's crazy how like they just target you based on like what you've watched and what you've listened to.
It's the same with music production. You go and watch music production videos on YouTube, and it's just like you get bombarded with like free plugin or like Black Friday sale. Yeah. Or, like, sometimes it's good, and sometimes you're just like, I know that's not a good plugin.
Enough. Yeah. Nah. I think it's been a good conversation. We've had it's been a while. It is hot today. I think we're recording this on the 42-degree day that's meant to be.
Classic.
It's a bit hot in here as well. The aircon's not working, but it's better than it is outdoors.
Yeah.
But thanks for Kaylin for coming out in this heat.
An absolute pleasure. A pleasure to be here inside Chilean. Yeah.
We'd rather be at the beach, but
no, I've enjoyed having this chat with you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. It's been a great conversation. We've talked about a lot of things. We've gone on a few tangents here and there, but hopefully everyone enjoys those.
Yeah.
They're always the best ones, because those are the ones that like people resonate with the most. Yeah. It's really raw.
Definitely.
But yeah, obviously if you guys enjoy this, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Follow Caitlin on Instagram. Her link will be in the description. But you know, besides that, this is actually the last recording of the year.
So, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on as the last recording of the year. I'll be back next year. This episode will be coming out in January. You're probably watching this in January, obviously. But this will be coming out in January. So, you know, I hope you guys had a good start to the year at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for Caitlin for coming on, and I hope you guys have a good one. See you later.
Bye.